Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of Policy Watch with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Telecom regulator TRAI on Tuesday issued new draft norms to curb pesky calls and SMSs by using blockchain technology to ensure that telemarketing messages are sent only to those who have subscribed to them, and that too by authorized entities. The Telecom Commercial Communications Customer Preference Regulations 2018 draft will be open for public comment till June 11th. The new technology-based norms will record all communication between subscribers and entities, capturing customer consent for information and authorized telemarketing agencies. The draft proposes to check misuse of repeated unsolicited calls being made even to those subscribers who have given consent. In our first segment of Policy Watch today, we will discuss how to deal with the issue of pesky calls and texts. Joining me on the program today are K. Badrinath, Policy Editor, Financial Chronicle, and Ravi Vishweshwaraya Sharda Prasad, Independent Telecom Consultant. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Policy Watch. Badrinath, I'd like to start with you, of course. First, let's talk about the problem of pesky calls and SMSs. It is something that has been, plaguing telecom users for a long time now. How do we put an end to it?
Basically, pesky calls are like a pest. And I compare it with pest for the simple reason that the receiver of those pesky calls or SMSs have very limited choice, either to avoid or discontinue them, because the software is written in such a way that you cannot avoid. For example, if I'm subscribing to a WhatsApp service, immediately you will say that, okay, can I have access to your entire mailing addresses, the phone calls, balance sheets and everything. So the entire data is accessed either legally, illegally, or massive theft of data is happening across the world. It's not just India, sir. This issue is the biggest problem, and pesky calls or the SMSs is a small part of it, and there's a huge one. Okay, your personal data, your dealings, even if someone else knows, maybe the privacy issue is involved. But many a time, most sensitive financial data, financial information is, basically taken away, accessed
and misused.
And misused in a big way. This has become the biggest problem, number one. When it comes to pesky calls and the SMSs itself, you have you and me as a consumer have very limited option. If you go and opt for a mobile app, first thing, he says he is not going to give you access to the app. He may call it as free. But why does he give it free? No, but nothing is free in this world. So when you go for an app or anything, then what he says is, please give me access to your data or your contacts list. Or even your service provider would have shared the entire data with several of the service providers. The latest scandal that has hit the Facebook is this only. The data theft that has happened has led to a lot of them. Second major issue is the irritation that the consumer feels. This morning I must have received at least 6 such calls. Sir, I am providing you this service. I have not opted for it. No, I have never. But then he says that if you don't opt for this service, that means your regular services will be limited. So while linking your regular, decent services that needs to be given to me because I'm paying you, you are linking it to your other revenue streams. Because of which there's a massive problem within the country and outside.
Right.
So TRA has been trying to do this, saying that we would like to, protect the consumer from pesky calls, data, as well as, SMSs, unsolicited SMSs, and all that. Now you say that there is a technological intervention. Well, I'm not very comfortable about the technology that is there going to be, or which is going to come to our aid at all.
Right. The scale of the problem has been very well elaborated by K. Badrinath. Ravi, I'd like to bring you into the picture now. As far as the new draft of TRI itself is concerned, they're working on a new draft trying to deal with this problem itself. How are they going to deal with this problem?
No, it is a really excellent initiative of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, and I would like to compliment the TRAI and R.S. Sharma and S.K. Gupta for this. This problem of pesky calls, phone calls, SMSs, emails has been there for the last 20 years. And in fact, all types of unsolicited commercial communications should have been outlawed right from 1995 when the services started, because in those days we had to pay 32 rupees even to receive a call or to receive an SMS, and especially when roaming. So it was the targets of spam who were being targeted. Now with blockchain, it's a very good technology, because what is happening is that when complaints are being made against these spammers, a lot of these spammers are telling lies and telling the regulator when there's a complaint that the subscriber opted to receive these calls. TRA had implemented the Do Not Call registry only in 2010. It actually should have done that when it was formed in 1997. But in 2010, now what subscribers have seen is that when they make a complaint, half the time you'll say, oh, your complaint is not in the registered format, or you get a reply saying that the party that sent you this is not a registered telemarketer, or they'll say, look, we could not find this call or SMS in your call records. Now, what is happening is that right from the very beginning, the telecom operators, because they get so much money from telemarketing, a large part of their revenue comes from these telemarketing spam calls. And therefore, all the telecom operators, in spite of consumer annoyance and anger, have been encouraging the telemarketers. Now, what is happening is with blockchain technology, is the spammer will not be able to lie and say that the consumer wanted to receive the call or the SMS. When TRAI very late in 2010, which should have done it in 1995, but in 2010 they implemented the Do Not Call registry, they said you can have an opt-in for 7 categories of real estate, financial services, insurance, and sale and purchase of houses. 7 banks. That's 7 categories, and some people gave their consent there, but most people did not. What is happening is that these spammers are just kind of en masse, totally sending out thousands of SMSs and phone calls. A lot of them are robocalls, which just automatically dial numbers or send SMSs out. And
that's why when you answer the call, you don't really hear anyone on the other end, probably for 10-15 seconds, and then suddenly...
Absolutely, they're robocalls. In fact, it's a big nuisance in USA. Now, with blockchain, they will not be able to deny the fact that the subscriber asked for it. Okay, the other advantage of blockchain is that right now the spammer knows everything about you, your phone number, your email, everything. With blockchain, they will not know the address that they're sending it to. The advantage of blockchain is essentially in accounting you have double ledger entries. With blockchain, you have multiple ledgers. Think of it as an extension of a double ledger in standard accounting. Now, in blockchain, you have 2 parties are entering into a contract without knowing each other's identities, okay? But you have multiple nodes in between, and the essence of a contract is, if you make an offer, you should not be able to repudiate it. You should not be able to say, I did not make this offer. So a blockchain is essentially a technology where the 2 parties, it will ensure that the 2 parties actually do what they say they will do without ever being in contact with each other or knowing each other's identity.
So just to simplify things, yes, what blockchain is basically doing is, it's providing a service to another person who wants the service, but the service provider and the person who's getting the service don't really know where it is coming from. Basically, it matches the needs of a person and sends it out. That's what blockchain does.
It maintains the privacy and anonymity. The biggest thing about blockchain is anonymity, where you can't trace who the sender is and who the receiver is,
Sure.
but it ensures that each carries out what they say they will do.
Fair.
So it will prevent a spammer from lying to the authority when a complaint is made against it. Because what is happening is that there are a lot of spammers, they're supposed to register with a 140 number. But
Right.
they're not. They're sending calls from the regular number.
Right.
And because the telecom operators get so much of the revenue from these spammers, they are actually encouraging the spammers.
Fair enough. You know,
See, but I completely appreciate what Prasad was saying. The point here is that as on date, none of us, at least I can't understand what even the regular software is all about. If the software becomes all the more complicated, then what will happen to the consumer? Consumer of the service. My regular service is simply I need to receive calls or I would want to make calls. And I guess more than 70% of Indians would like to do just that. Or maybe maximum an SMS from my bank saying that, okay, your
Salary has
account
been credited,
balance
this much
is
has
so
been
much, or
debited,
you
yeah.
don't have any money in your account,
Right.
or that kind of stuff. So this is what basically I need. But what will happen is that the complexity involved in the technology might defeat the very purpose with which TRI might be trying to help the consumer with. Now, how do we deal with that is one big issue. Second issue is the theft of data. Theft of entire phone numbers, millions of phone numbers, their addresses, their names, their preferences. Even what pizza I eat, what I don't eat, where I buy liquor, where I don't. Everything is in the public domain. This is the biggest fraud in this century. So how do we deal with this? Okay, I'm not against technology or its deployment. But if the technology is not for the consumer centric, then why do we need these technologies at all? This is a big question. Perhaps I don't know how the companies are going to address, how the consumers are going to react, and how the regulators are going to regulate. If we cannot regulate today the pesky calls, is he going to make it? I mean, I have been hearing about this pesky calls business for the last 20 years.
yes. It's
And
not
today
a new
continue.
issue. It's been going on for a long time
Huge.
now, and we've been trying to deal with it for a long time now
Huge.
as well. So, the bigger issue, Ravi, about data theft, how do we address that problem? What needs to be done to deal with that issue? Because people are more and increasingly worried about the data that is out there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, actually, this use of the blockchain will help in curbing the theft of data or misuse of data by the spammers, because it sort of is an insulation between the spammer and the receiver of the calls. But a lot of data theft is really in this either smartphones where people are accessing everything over the internet. They're doing their personal banking on the smartphone and on the same handset. They're indulging in personal banking, mobile banking, internet banking, as well as getting onto WhatsApp, getting onto various accessing porn sites. And therefore, if you have a smartphone, your privacy is compromised anyway. Just take it, that's a given. The larger part is, the Supreme Court had ruled on privacy.
But the question is, should you just accept it that way? That
No,
if I have a smartphone,
no, you should not. But I mean, unless you are a very sophisticated user, most people will not, have these password managers on their phones. They don't employ all kinds of firewalls on their phones. The larger question is, okay, you have the Supreme Court ruling on privacy, and there's been a Data Privacy Act which has been pending for years and years. But there's opposition to that in different intelligence agencies. It's been pending in Parliament for years. Now the question is, what I'm saying is about this draft TRAI regulation. It should not just be for calls and SMSs. It should also be for emails. It should be for any type of communications, because essentially my belief is that nobody should contact me unless it is with my consent.
fair enough.
Or they can contact me once, and if I say that I do not want to be contacted by you, that should be a permanent contact.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
blockchain will enable that.
Okay.
Or if I want to say, okay, I want to receive a call from you from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, but not after that, blockchain will record that, and if the spammer violates that, he can be caught.
Looking at what we've seen over the last 2 decades, it seems like a utopian dream. We hope that actually happens and comes into being. We need foolproof technology at the end of the day. The sooner, the better. On that note, it's time for a short break now. Still to come, at 18% Indian customers are the biggest victims of banking fraud, says a new study. We'll analyze why we are susceptible to such frauds on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on Policy Watch today.
सर्वाधिक ध्यान गांव के विकास और कृषि के विकास पर दिया है। 14 लाख करोड़ रुपया ग्रामीण विकास और कृषि पर ही खर्च होने वाला है। मनरेगा में जो काम करने मजदूर आते हैं, उन मजदूरों को उनकी योग्यता के हिसाब से, क्षमता के हिसाब से हम कुशल बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अभियान के माध्यम से सुनिश्चित किया है कि गांव में 100 के 100 घर में शौचालय होना चाहिए, सभी घर में रसोई गैस का कनेक्शन होना चाहिए। ग्रामीण क्षेत्र की महिलाओं को 8 करोड़ गैस कनेक्शन देने का सरकार का संकल्प है।
4 साल मोदी सरकार में एक मुलाकात केंद्रीय मंत्री ग्रामीण विकास, पंचायती राज और खान मंत्रालय नरेंद्र सिंह तोमर के साथ, सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
Welcome back. You're watching Policy Watch with me, Frank Pereira. Indian consumers have taken to digital banking in a big way, but they are also among the biggest victims of banking fraud, shows a new report released by payments company FIS. The report, surveying people across multiple countries, found that 18% of Indian customers reported a fraud in the past year, more than any other country surveyed by the organization. These frauds occur across all ages and correlate with the frequency of usage of digital banking by different age groups. The age group most affected by frauds is 27 to 37 years. These people also happen to be the most prolific in using digital banking apps. 1 of every 4 people in this age group reported a fraud. By comparison, only 6% consumers in Germany and 8% in the UK reported banking frauds, while those in the US were twice as likely to switch their banks after a fraud as non-victims. In our next segment of Policy Watch, we will discuss why India has the highest rate of online banking frauds in the world. Still with me on the program is K. Badrinath, Policy Editor, Financial Chronicle, and joining us now is R. Gopalan, former Secretary, Financial Services, Government of India. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this segment of Policy Watch. Mr. Gopalan, let me begin with you. Of course, the study that was conducted by FIS said 18% of the online banking frauds happen in India, and Indian consumers are extremely susceptible. Why is that so, do you think?
Well, there are different aspects you have to look at before you judge as to why this is happening. Look at the stakeholders in the whole thing. One is the robustness of the software which is used, the kind of firewalls that are being built to ensure that the fraud does not happen. The integrity of the people who are handling all this. Third, the integrity of the bankers and others who are handling on the financial sector side. The responsibility of the person who uses the card itself has to undergo a transformation. Fifth, the cyber crimes, detection of cyber crimes, and the prosecution of the cyber crimes as fast as possible. These are 6 aspects which we need to study before we are able to understand how this problem can be curtailed.
Sure. Badrinath, let me bring you into the picture now. As far as this particular issue is concerned, do you think, where does the biggest problem lie? Of all the 6 points that R. Gopalan has just raised, do you believe that it is a case of, just too many people being here and using it? Is it a software end problem, or is it a combination of everything?
My guess is that a Reserve Bank is not equipped to deal with digital banking. 1. Second, the largest bank in this country, most people rely upon is State Bank of India, which is a banker to the most of Indians like us. But in this case, 2. One is ignorance. Second is innocence of the consumer who is accessing his account online. Third issue is that, illiteracy. In many of the semi-urban and rural markets, the consumers do not know what they are up to. We are wanting to aggressively digitize the economy, financial services, and everything. That's fine. It may have its own positive impact. But then how do we do it? And is Reserve Bank equipped to handle this? There are billions of transactions happening across the world from this, and you have opened up the economy in a big way. And it's completely digitized world over. Billions of dollars move on online. And for consumers, small consumers like you and me, many a time you get a message saying that please don't share your debit card details or VPP number or all this. But sometimes you may or may not understand. And there are tricksters, there are software problems, and there are fraudsters. All the three issues are there. And what is the kind of cybercrime infrastructure that you have to tackle these issues? So a combination of these issues. My guess is the Reserve Bank needs to take a big call as to what extent you will allow online transactions. Second, how do you proliferate into it? If there are frauds, how do you deal with these frauds is the biggest issue. Even in Delhi, I don't know if you recall, only a few days back, you have seen that a huge gang which is operating out of Jharkhand, a small village in Jharkhand, and they have been robbing customers from Mumbai, Delhi, and everything.
And they built multi-storied houses for themselves.
Multi-story buildings and houses. And the point here is that it's not, even if you are literate, even if you know things are there are tricksters, there are psychological issues which are there while dealing with these issues. We are not perhaps mentally equipped to deal with kind of frauds that are happening.
Sure.
Then there is something called war dialers. War dialers, what do they do? The war dialers actually, block the real, caller's identity. And secondly, when you go to the crime branch, he says, sir, I have checked the number, I don't know who it is, where it is, what it is.
Okay, multiple issues as far as this particular problem is concerned. How do we deal with it? What is the best way forward? Where do we start?
Okay, starting you can do it in many places. Starting is not in one. It has got to be a synchronized way of handling this problem.
So a multi-pronged approach is what we need.
Multi-pronged approach. All stakeholders in this. There should be a literacy point. Education has to be done. Literacy, financial literacy has to be improved. The software side, I tell you, there are a lot of gaps. Which for the transactions which we do, the Visa, Mastercard, they were excellent. Architecture for working behind. We need to see how these things are, ensured. Others who adopt that use that in such a way that the frauds are much less reduced, because firewalls are built, series of these things are there, so that people don't get cheated on account of the faulty software or inadequacies in the software. I would put it that way. Then, as he said, the cybercrime detection and punishment immediately in courts. That is another area which is very, very important. The customers also should know their responsibilities. The literacy is very important. They should know if somebody asks for something, then they should be in a position to say, no, I'm not going to give you this data. So it's a combination of all stakeholders in this. Everybody has to play his role. Then only we will be in a position. It is successfully these transactions do take place in many countries. Some amount of fraud will always be there. The human intelligence is so great, so this thing, they can work out like what the Jharkhand thing he was mentioning. Somebody can spring up somewhere in some part of the globe and then try and rob you of some of it. It's possible. I'm not saying it is not impossible, but we should ensure that such instances are very short, far, and few in between. That is, we should be in a position to do.
K. Badrinath, infrastructure overhaul, is that something that we require? Do we need an overhaul of the law itself? Because if you look at it, cyber crimes is something that we have not dealt with in the past. Our laws also take time in catching up with the times. So is that something that we need to do?
One issue is inadequate cybercrime infrastructure. Secondly, do we have digital police who can understand digital networks? How many people do we have? A physical crime itself, we are not able to deal with it. A burglary, or robbery, or harassment, or chain snatching. We are not able to, there's a big sociological and economic issue. But when it comes to digital, it becomes all the more complexer. And because of that, you just can't. The problem is so huge, laws may not, work too much. The issue here is you need to have, like he was saying, the multi-pronged approach that we could have. Maybe perhaps it start with the Reserve Bank. Maybe banks will have to come in. The telecom services, internet-based company service providers will have to get in there. And third is the software that we are talking about, the mall software which is used for these tricksters, by the trickster, needs to be curbed.
Sure.
How do we do that? We need to have a, right now we have the first time we have a cyber security advisor to the Prime Minister. But he will be looking more at, global issues and things like that. But within India, what do we do now? It's a big question mark where I think the banks and the Reserve Bank will have to take the lead in this issue, and only on the legislative front, perhaps the government can get in and support the thing. And third is that many a time what happens is, in the rural areas, many a time what happens is the banker or even an agent will pick up somebody else's mobile phone and then accesses his debit card, Kisan credit card, and picks out money. He does not even aware that the money has been picked from his account.
Yeah, and many a times, these crimes go even unreported.
And many a time it reported.
Sure. Quick closing comments from both my guests, starting with you, Mr. Gopalan. What's the way forward?
See, I said a multi-pronged approach. And in multi-pronged approach, I said every bit of it has to move forward. There is no one which should be in a position to take the lead and solve the problem. All of them have to move in tandem. Establishing good cybercrime understanding police who would be in a position to prosecute those crimes as and when they are reported is very important. And also literacy of the people who want to use these financial methodologies. They should understand what are the risks they are undergoing and how they should protect themselves from these risks by their own behavior.
Right.
This is the second important thing. As I mentioned about the software side, the firewalls building and those things are also equally important. Their efforts are going on. My only wish is that let them be speeded up to the extent that all these things converge at a point where the ability to do a crime or perpetrate a crime, the chances are far less.
Right. Badina.
Technology-based solutions, like he is using technology. The fraudsters are using technology to access your account, your PIN number, your OTPs, or your card account, or they might be even hacking into your mail to get more details about your transactions, play psychologically and all that. So there are different factors. So can technology be the intervening factor is a question mark which we need to understand. Second is, I agree with Mr. Gopalan that we as citizens or account holders need to be more careful.
Sure.
So that is only one thing which we need to be very, very alert, very careful while dealing with your Android phone or your internet networks and things like that. And many times these cyber cafes have become a big, hubs for such crimes.
Right. Right.
So how do we regulate? That is another question which...
Multi-pronged approach as far as dealing with this particular problem is concerned is what my guests are saying on the program today. Thank you to both of them for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective. For us, as always, we'd like to hear from you as well. We'd like your suggestions and your feedback. You can share them at policywatch.feedback@gmail.com. You can also tweet to us using our Twitter handles at FRP09 and at Rajya Sabha TV. That's it from me. See you again next time.